This is the second video in Masechet Bava Unit 8. The first video was going through one situation described by Rabba. The second video is going to go through a second situation described by Rabba. Let's begin. First, let's do a quick review of the last case that we learned. V'amar Rabba said, Zarak kli merosh hagag, if someone threw an object off a roof, uba acher, and someone else came v'shivro b'makel and broke it with a stick before it hit the ground, patur, the person who smashed it before it hit the ground with the stick is patur. My time, or what's the reason why that person is patur? Mana tavira tavar, mana, an object, tavir, that is broken, tavar, he broke. The person broke a broken object. Since when the object was thrown off the roof, it was definitely going to smash on the ground when it hit. Therefore, the person who smashed it is not considered to be chayav because it was breaking anyway. So breaking a second before it breaks anyway is not considered to be enough to make you chayav to pay damages. Again, that was the case from our last Gemara. Now we're going to see a new case that Rabba is going to bring in. Amar Rabba zara kli mirosh hagag. Another situation of an object being thrown off a roof, but it's going to be a little bit different, and the discussion will be a little bit different for that reason. Okay, before we get into that situation, I want to point out something which is very important, and that is when we go through these halachot, we try to figure out who is chayav and who is patur. We are not trying to find somebody to blame. Okay, we are not going to say, hey, that person is the one who's most responsible for the damage, therefore they have to be the one who pays. The key here is we are concerned with actions. Okay, actions meaning, can I look at an action and say, this is defined as an action which did damage. This is an act of damage. Even if you could find a person who is completely to blame, I could say, I found someone to blame. If that person did not do an action which is considered to be a damaging, we'll call it a something which is defined as a damaging, okay, action or act, then that person will not be chayav. We need to find someone who did an actual act of damage. Even if they're to blame, they have to do an act of damage, and that's what we're going to see as we go on. Keep that in mind, please. Okay, so here we go. As you can see, we highlighted the new situation. As you can see at the end, you want a spoiler alert. Then it's patur. In this case, the person who's going to do the damage is going to be exempt from payments. And again, that's because the act they did is not considered to be an act of damage. Now let's read it. V'amar Rabba. Rabba also said, here's the following scenario. Zarak kli mirosh hagag. If somebody threw an object off a roof, and in this case, v'hayu tachtav karim uksatot, and it had beneath it pillows or cushions. Karim are cushions or pillows. I'm not sure which is pillows, which is cushions, doesn't really matter. Karim uksatot is a phrase, pillows or cushions, underneath this object. So the object was thrown off the roof, it was going to land safely. Ba'acher, someone else came along, vislakan, okay, and removed the pillows. Okay. Oh, now here's the real kicker. Kadam, that person who threw it went ahead, uslakan, and moved the pillow away. Either of those cases, patur. Everybody is patur. Okay, so you have a situation where an object is thrown off a roof, it was going to land safely, someone pulled the pillow away and it smashes, nobody pays for it. And even if the person himself was the same person who threw it, was the same person who pulled the object away, even in that case, where, again, you could figure out exactly who that person is to blame, even so, patur. That is Rabba's case. Again, it seems to be a little bit confusing, it seems a little bit mind-blowing. How could a person be patur if there was an object that was going to be safe and they pulled an object away and they made it break? How could that person be patur? And especially if that was the same person who threw the object, right? Or think about it, dropping an object, right? A person is standing, holding a glass, and they're holding a pillow. And the pillow's on the table, and their hand's on the pillow. And you drop the glass, and it's going to land on the pillow, be fine. And as before the glass hits the table, you pull the pillow away and it smashes. You do not have to pay for that glass, even if it belonged to somebody else. You let go of it, you pull the pillow away, even in that case, right? O kadam muslak. If that same person who threw it went ahead and moved it, patur. Now, why are you patur? So again, that goes back to what we were discussing before. even though the person can be blamed, he didn't do an action which is considered to be an act of damage. Let's see. Let's move forward and see exactly what that means. Okay, so now let's see the reason. So the Gemara, after saying patur, that the person who threw the object is patur because the cushions were there, even though they were removed. So the Gemara says, "My tama." What is the reason for this? What is the reason that the person who threw it is patur? Wasn't it that throwing which caused the damage? And not only that, but let's say, ukadamu slakam, we're talking about a situation where the same person was the one who removed the pillows. So why is that act of throwing not considered to be an act of damage? So Gemara says the following: But idna, at the time disajeh, that he threw it, psuke mifske giyare, literally means the arrow had been released. Meaning, the arrow represents the force that does the damage. And at the time that he threw it, he lets go of it. And when he lets go of the object, therefore the force is released. And when he lets go, it's going to land on a pillow. And since when he lets go, it's going to land on a pillow, the force is gone, and the force would not have broken it. Then, when what required the object to break? The pillow being moved away. Therefore, the act of throwing is not considered to be an act of damage again. But idna deshadye, at the time that he threw it, psuke mifske gira, the arrow had been released, the force had been spent. The force is gone. He no longer is acting on the object, but it was going to land on a pillow. So the act of throwing is not considered to be an act of damage. Okay, so if we look at this using some of my beautiful artwork over here, so we'll see exactly a little better demonstration of what that means. Here is the object being thrown. Now, at the time the object is being thrown right now, it's going to land on these cushions over here, which look more like clouds. Either way, the point is, right now the object is not going to break. Right now, his force is gone. Okay? He threw the object. He's no longer acting on the object. And at this moment in time, right now, this force is not. Okay, this is not. Okay, not an act of damage. Okay. This is not an act of damage because the object right now, as he lets go of it, is going to land on these cushions and is not going to break. Therefore, we don't define this as an act of damage. Yes, somebody else might come along and pull the pillows away, and then once the pillows are pulled away, right, once those are gone, the object then is going to smash into a million pieces. But the act that does the damage is the person throwing the object off the roof, not the removing of the pillows. The pillows are just being moved out of the way. And this is not considered to be an act of damage, okay, because when he let go of it, the pillows were still there. That's exactly what we're talking about here. Okay. Now, what about the person who threw the pillows? Move the pillows away. We'll get into that. But that explains exactly why the person who threw the object is not considered to be obligated, because that's not the throwing of the object off the roof is not an act of damage, because when the person let go, again, the arrow was spent, the energy was gone, the force was gone, and it's going to land. He's not acting on this object anymore. Therefore, he is patur, even if he himself pulls the object away, because again, this is not an act of damage. And if we look, we'll see at the bottom of the page there, Rashi, same thing. Rashi tells us the following: why is the person patur? He says, Shahare, because, behold, because this is the way it is, Mezrikato, from his throwing, Ein sofo lishaber, it was not going to break, Ad sheyinatlu hakarim, until the cushions were removed. So, since when the ball was released, when the object was released from the roof, it was going to land on pillows. Therefore, his throwing itself the act of throwing was not an act which was defined as an act that was going to break anything, an act of damage, because the pillows still had to be removed. Therefore, he is patur. So now we have to ask ourselves, fine. So the act of throwing the object off the roof is not defined as an act of damage. What about the act of pulling the pillow away? Why is that not called an act of damage? Didn't that cause it to break? So based on things we've learned already, the wheels should start turning in your head about why we know this is not considered to be damage. But let's look at an interesting source anyway. So here's an interesting Gemara on the daf Tzadichet Amid Aleph, also in Masechet Bava, much later on in our Masechet. Let's see what this So the Gemara says the following: Amar Rabba, and here's Rabba again. Hasoref shtaro shel chaver. If someone burns his friend's document, in this case, it's a document that would get this person money, right? So person A has a document that says I am owed $500, and then you go and you burn that document. Patur, you are patur. You don't have to pay for burning that document. Why? Damarle, you could say to him, Niyara klai minach. I just took a small piece of paper from you. That's all. I destroyed a small piece of paper. Now, this is a very interesting and very strange Gemara, because at the end of the day, you are causing a person to possibly lose out money. Now, you're not taking that money away and burning it. It's money that person was owed, and it's just a piece of paper. But a piece of paper could have caused a person to lose money, because now they no longer have a proof that they're owed $500. Yet we say you're patur. Why? So this goes back to what we've discussed before. This is a classic situation of grama. Not Gemara, grama. Okay, grama means setting up a situation where damage is going to happen, but the damage doesn't happen because of you, or it doesn't happen because of your actions, because of your force. Right? For example, we discuss this. Right? We discuss this. If there's a fire and I pour water around the fire, and then the fire reaches the water and it goes out. That's grama. I didn't actually put the fire out. I set up a situation that would cause the fire to go out. So the halacha we're seeing here is that if you damage in a way of grama, where you just set up a situation of damage, but you don't actually act on the object to cause the damage, then you are patur. Now, yes, you did something wrong. There's no question. And yes, you have points against you in Shemayim. But at the end of the day, you are not paying in this world, because in this world we look at actions. Did someone do an act of damage? And setting up a situation where the damage will be caused, and even if the force does not come from you, that's not called an act of damage. You are not chayav. And that is exactly what Rashi says in our Gemara. When discussing why the person who pulled a cushion away is patur, he says, look, afilu hazorek atzmo nitalan patur. Even if the person who threw the object himself was the one who pulled them away, the pillows away, patur. You did it all. You threw the object, you pulled the cushions away, and it smashes, and it's someone else's object. Still you're patur. Why? De grama benizakin have. The act of throwing, we already explained why you're patur. Because it's not an act of damage, because when you let go, it was going to land softly. And what about pulling the pillows away? Grama benizakin have. This is an act of grama benizakin. And grama benizakin, you are always patur. Pulling a cushion, pulling away, is setting up a situation for it to break. It's not actually acting on the object. It's moving away the pillow. Therefore, you're patur. Again, it's held against you. You're a bad person. You did something. Well, you did something that wasn't bad, and you are going to be held. If it's you did it on purpose, it's going to be held against you in Shemayim as points on your record. But at the end of the day, in terms of in this world, you don't pay because you did not do an act of damage. Okay, now let's read through the Gemara top to bottom, the entire Unit 8. No, we'll do 8. We'll do the second half of Unit 8 first. I'll just include Rashi's explanations. Okay, V'amar Rabba. Rabba also said the following: Zarak kalimi rosh agag. If someone threw an object off a roof, v'hayu tachtav karim muksatot, and it had pillows or cushions below it, where it was going to land, and it wasn't going to break. Ba'acher, someone else came along, uslakan, and removed those pillows. O kadam, or he himself went ahead, uslakan. The person who threw it went ahead and removed those pillows. Patur. Everyone is patur here. Even if it's the same person, even if you could say that person is to blame for this damage, he still doesn't pay for it. My tama, what's the reason? That the person who threw it doesn't pay. But idna deshadye, the time that he threw it, psuke mifsake giyurei. The arrow had been released, meaning the force was completely used up. And since once his force was used up, and at the time that he released it, his force in the object was used up, it was not going to break because it was going to land on the object. The throwing is not considered to be an act of damage. And of course, the removing of the pillow is not called an act of damage, because all you're doing is pulling a pillow away. You're not actually acting on the object. Okay. So therefore, in this case, the person is patur across the board. Again, in this world, patur. In next world, not necessarily, but in this world, patur. Now let's read the entire Gemara from the beginning. Va'amar Rabba, Zara Kli. Let's just stop here. That's good enough. Let's read our second half one more time. Va'amar Rabba, Rabba said, Zara Kli mirosh agav. A person threw an object off a roof. Va'yu tachtav. There was beneath it karim uksatot, pillows or cushions. Ba'acher uslakan, if someone else came along and removed them, those cushions, so that it would break. O kadam, or he went ahead himself, the thrower, uslakan, and removed the cushions. Patur, you're still exempt from paying. My time, what's the reason? But Eden the Shadye, because at the time that he threw it, Psuke Mifske Gyara, the arrow had been released, the force was gone, it's not an act of damage. Everybody is Patur.